Okay, we're on. Dr. Danger, my friend.
Mr. Brendon, how you doing?
Oh, I am so pumped to have you here. Thank you for
Thank
doing this
you.
with me.
I am
Um,
grateful.
so it's National Recovery Month this month. Did you know that?
Oh, what a month, eh?
Yeah, and so we called this when do I have the freedom to be? Um, I don't think this is just for people in recovery.
True story. So friggin' true.
And
Welcome to our world.
yeah, and so I'm just I'm honored to have this chance with you to talk about this. It was interesting. A lot of people have heard me talk about my journey in recovery, my journey in sobriety. And I was looking at, just before we started this, I was looking at like 18 months. It's been almost 18 months now. And I was looking at that and
Fuck
I was
yeah.
like, at that point, 18 months ago, I was like, I don't even think anyone's going to talk to me ever again.
Yeah.
So having you on here, I was like, yes. But I have to. I want to begin this with kind of telling on myself. Um, I've had an interesting time being me the last few days, and it's been interesting. I'm at Ellagar Paradise, but having this sense of like almost like this sense of just kind of numbness. But I kind of began doing this live before we started, and I was like, what is actually going on here? And one of the things I realized was how much I determine what I'm being by what I'm feeling.
Yeah. Oh. Had to bring up the F word, didn't you?
I had to
Um,
do it.
well, can I acknowledge something also,
Yeah,
which is that you have this glow about you.
I
Like,
do.
yeah, you actually do. It's beautiful. It's
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I really want to acknowledge it in this moment based on what you said, because what we think and what we feel about us is most often wrong.
Yeah.
Unless we're feeling like $1 billion and know we're conquering the world, and then
Yep.
it's correct. But all the other things are
Mm.
judgment systems. But
That is,
look at what we've
yeah.
learned growing up. Our entire lives have been, you're good if you do this, you're bad if you do this. Mommy, and the other thing that we I don't think have ever really been able to give true due diligence to, which is our awareness of what everybody else was feeling and thinking, that was so intense that we simply believed we were it and still believe we are it and are still, we'll hear it, we'll hear who does this belong to, we'll do who does this belong to. Some of us will do it many, 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 many times, and yet you're still so aware of what is going on, and were to such a degree that you crafted your reality, that almost all of us crafted our reality based on the thoughts, feelings, and emotions and the presumptive realities of other people.
Yeah.
Oh,
True story. And you know that thing, the thing with awareness too, one of the things I got to too today, I was like, wow, I have not, I don't know if it's not really been willing to desire, but not really been willing to acknowledge just how much awareness I have. I remember you said on a call years ago, you said you are 1 billion times more aware than you want to acknowledge, and
yep.
it took it out of anything that you could even begin to compute. But that, like even being down here and even with the energy that I put in with this National Recovery Month and begin even the acknowledgement of that, like how many people am I aware of with recovery? Like when you have something, if you're in recovery or you have something like addiction, how many people are you aware of that are in a similar thing? And that one of the things I learned along the years with access was that thing of, when you kind of grow up with a lot of sadness or a lot of anger or a lot of whatever that is, you're very familiar with that vibration.
Yeah.
For me, it is definitely unhappiness.
Yeah.
And this morning I was actually asking, okay, what am I avoiding? And that was the first thing that popped, was total happiness, like actual joy.
That. Well, and if you sorry, I just had to look outside at the hummingbirds that are finally. I've had a
And
feeder
I
up there
love that
for
you
3
have that.
months, and now
So
birds are
I heard you
flocking.
talking about it on the, yeah.
Oh, great! I just,
But I
you know,
heard you talking about that on the Creative Edge, that you did the ESC, and then it was, and I
yeah,
was like, oh,
yeah. I did
that,
this ESC, this thing with Maria in Slovenia. She did it for 30 days. I was the 30th day, and I was so honored. And from that moment, man, I have had birds literally flocking here. I have a hummingbird feeder and I have a regular bird feeder, and they are just here all the time. Every time I'm on, they are there. So I spend half my time looking out. But it part of it is that joy that you're talking about. They just are, and they're this
yeah.
movement. You know, joy has movement. And the thing about unhappiness and depression, like if you look at depression, depression is literally like depressed energy, like a depressed energetic state. There's very little movement.
Mm,
There's very little. There's and one of the reasons people do unhappiness and depression is so they don't do out of control. So they don't go from A to Z. So they can control every step. So they literally slow down their energy. So they become depressed and really unhappy. And if when you were a kid, you were bouncing off the friggin' walls, hello, more hummingbirds. And they just sit there and look at me too. Um, if you were a little kid and you were bouncing off the walls and that was unacceptable to your family, what do? Well, your strategy becomes, above all else, I will learn to control myself. And that unhappiness is one of the greatest ways we do it.
yeah. And I love that you brought that up too, with the control, because that's, man, that has been such a big element of my life. Like that, um, how do I make sure that I'm not going to be too much? How do I make sure that I can control this? You know, the other thing too that I was looking at with this topic, and one of the things I would say that um, I don't know if I'd call it was what I used to enable a lot of my addiction and a lot of that stuff, but it was definitely one of the bigger kind of energies, was how much I tried to prove what I was being, or
Mm,
definitely at least prove I was being the opposite of what I decided I was.
yeah.
You know, I remember the first time I got called out on this by, I was on the phone with Gary and he said, "You're not a nice guy." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "You just like to prove to everyone that you are." And I was like,
Whoa.
"Oh." But I realized
Huh.
with that, it was one of those
Mm,
moments where I was just like, "Holy shit." But then here's the other part that kind of always was weird for me. You know how you've talked a lot about this part, the coincidence of possibilities,
yeah.
where it's like being, I can be extremely caring and I can be a total asshole, but I was always trying to prove the good one or the right
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
as if
But
that was being.
yeah, and that's that this is the thing about being, is it includes everything. And this we
Yeah.
still can't fathom. Like, how's that okay? How is it okay for me to be an asshole? Well, everybody chooses to be an asshole at some point. And those that are okay with, hey, I was just an asshole. I mean, that is such a freedom. And for me too, there was this time where this lady that worked for us at the ranch did not tighten my saddle, and I go running off across the field, and I stayed in the saddle for most of it, and then my horse did this weird thing and I slipped to the side and fell off, and I was so pissed off, because she didn't, do my
I
saddle.
was
And
watching you in slow-mo.
yeah, I remember exactly. And I was like, boo. And I was so pissed. This is somebody that is somebody I am paying and hiring to take care of people, including me. All the right. The here, and I was so stuck by it, and I just was so pissed off. And he's like, "You're just being an asshole." I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm not an asshole. She's an asshole." He's like, "Excuse me, you're the one who's going to be riding in the saddle. Whose job is it to check that the cinch is tight?" I went, "Oh my God, you're right. That was my job. That was my fault." So I was getting mad at her because I was actually mad at myself for being stupid. But also, Gary pointed out I like being an asshole. And it took me a while to go, oh, I like this. I like being an asshole sometimes. Oh my God, because I did the same thing. I spent my life trying to prove that I was the
Yeah.
nice guy only. Nice is good, asshole is bad. I am good. You know, let me prove that I'm good because I have so much of a sense of wrongness for everything I am and everything about me. So let me antidote that with trying to be perfect. And it's such a state of judgment, and it doesn't give us any freedom to not be perfect. And yet, I mean, and that's one of the nice things about addiction, or let's say in your case drinking. It's like you could be whatever you were because you weren't there to worry about it.
Well, yeah, you could craft it and then believe what you'd crafted. You know, you
Yeah,
could craft this total image and then fully believe in that image.
yeah.
You know, and it's, man, has it given me some freedom coming out of that. You know, one of the tough, I think probably one of the tougher things to look at early on when I did, you know, the fourth step was right in the 12-step program, was write down all of your, basically create a life inventory, write down all of your resentments.
Mm,
Um, I did 43 pages.
wow.
And
How many things on a page? Lots.
oh, I would say, you know, A4 page, so probably, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15.
Right.
So we're looking at four to 600, I
Right.
guess. That's all. And, you know, half of which were at me, half of which were resentments of myself. But also, I think one of the hardest things to look at was how I'd actually treated people
Mm,
throughout my addiction. And that was also one of the hardest things to look at, but also one of the most freeing, was like along the lines of this thing, like looking at, in being you, you have the choice to be everything. It was like, wow, I can be a total fucker. Um, but also it's kind of freeing to be able to apologize to somebody from the space of, wow, I didn't even realize I was being it, and I'm truly sorry.
that
Um,
that's a different space. Like to truly have that, and that's an interesting thing because anybody who has especially with addiction, you can see it because it's kind of like addiction in stages, I guess, getting to the point of wherever somebody has gone from not addicted to addicted and is now going to from addicted to not addicted. It's like in going from not addicted to addicted, like when they started, they basically gave up their being in stages. And so now it's kind of like stages to get back to the being that they are. And so the apology, let's say, that somebody gives you here, 6 months in, is one thing. It's as real as they can be, but the thing 18 months in has got so much more of them present
yep.
and so much less. Well, if they are using the tools, of course, if they're continuing to work it and continuing whatever, let's put it that way, however we put that. But 18 months in it's a totally different thing where, and whatever it is, there's no absolute, no standard, but it's a different thing as they access more and more and more of their being, and it can be perceived
But
dynamically.
I love the way you put that, because it's this basically like this devolving of you into addiction. Kind of like, I got to a point where I pretty much lost me. So that thing of like, because
Mm,
I also
wow.
know, like early on in recovery, it's like, give it to me now. Because still functioning like an addict, you're like, oh, like, can I just be over this? But I was
Wow.
actually having a conversation with Gary. I'm not sure how it came up, but I was talking about healing, and he said, you know what, this is the rest of your life. And when he said that, it kind of created this relaxation in my world, because I was like,
Right.
oh, recovery is not going to be like addiction.
Whoa. Okay, just wait, if you could just say that one more time for everyone in the world.
Recovery's Recovery is not going to be like addiction. Actually, do you know what is? I
Wow.
didn't even I didn't even realize that, because I think somewhere in my world I've still had threads of it with that, where I'm like, holy shit, recovery is nothing like addiction.
Wow. And when you said that, and this is one of the things I love about the conversations we can have, especially at this point, which is the universe that goes, because
Yeah.
I think what most people have as their point of view of recovery, it's like anti-addiction. It's like
Mm,
unaddiction. No, it's not like addiction. It's going somewhere else.
that's a good point, actually. I've been doing a lot of different media, and some of it is just amazing, like epic conversations, really cool. But some of it, I find myself getting real stuck in it, and I'm seeing now. I'm like, oh, that's the interviews where it's all about making the addiction more the source for um, some source for the recovery. Like
Yeah.
they tie it in some weird way.
Yeah.
But for me, one of the things that's been, um, I guess, really helpful for me is that it had to be a new point forward. It had to be, that's done. There's still a lot of damage to make up for. There's still a lot of choices to make. There's so much of that, but it can't be done from that space anymore. That's done.
Boom.
And I think that's been an interesting journey. Like there's one other thing that kind of popped into my head with this, because I remember another conversation with Gary where I was kind of just, this was only a few months ago, and I was kind of like just kind of floating around, kind of floating through my life, just going like, yeah, like, do I even want to be here? Like, why am I here? Like what? And he said, okay, so let me ask you a question. Did you hit your use by date?
Mm,
And I was like, yeah. And he's like, have you acknowledged that? And I went, no. And he said, when did you set that up? And I went, oh shit, went right in the beginning as a kid.
right.
And just that acknowledgement, like, even if it, like, that makes no sense at all, but energetically it made complete total sense to me. Even that acknowledgement was, oh, because then he said, okay, so now would you be willing to live again? And I was like, holy shit, okay, good. Yes,
Wow.
please.
Well, this is an interesting it hmm. I'm so grateful for you. Um
I'm so grateful for you too, my friend. Thank you.
really, like you as you are showing up today, you as you have worked your ass off to be here as you are today, and I know it will get greater. But this you, and this getting to not just see you but be with you, and letting us all around the world be with you. um wow. Because what you're saying has such it's got such dynamic energetic presence and congruency that it opens a different world up for people. And
Yeah.
some of these things, it can sound simple, or certain of these things people may think, oh, I've heard this before, but they realize I haven't actually. This is a man who's walking a path, who has walked this, and who is presenting something from having walked the path in this unique way. What a gift.
Oh, I'm grateful for that. It's, I was having once again, Gary, it's interesting. I left him a message the other day, and I was like, hey, I just got I just got to thank you because I'm doing all this media and I found myself like referencing him like fucking 10 times in each thing. Like it'd be like, and Gary said this and Gary said that. And I was like, I don't think I've actually acknowledged you for how much those things have stuck. But also with you, how much that you have, I fucking admire you. And I don't know if I've shown you that, but I truly desire to acknowledge how much I do. And I was having a conversation with him. It was with this conversation of giving up the use by date and stuff like that. And I was talking about you and him, and I said, we're talking about receiving, and I said, you guys gifted me so much, and and I wouldn't receive it. And he said, it's not you wouldn't, you couldn't. And when he said that, I just was like, what? And he said, yeah, you couldn't. You weren't willing to be that which would allow you to receive it. And I was just like, I think I know for me, and I think for a lot of us, we tend to go straight to the wrongness of things like that rather than actually looking at where we are at in the moment. And like for me last year, I was like, man, I was gone, but I'm so grateful for it.
Well, that I am so grateful also and especially in this, you had choice. You could have stayed gone from your life. And there's another thing I want to acknowledge, because one of the things we tend to do, whether we've been an addict or not, like, so you talk about being gone, and what we do is, well, okay, so sorry, I want to address the other thing where you were, where Gary was saying, not that you wouldn't, you couldn't, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're willing to have that as information that gives us more awareness of where we are and what we're choosing in that moment, then we can use that as sort of a GPS of where we are and know where we are so that we can have more ease getting to where we would actually like to go. And most people try to take it and put it into a wrongness of the person saying it or a wrongness of themselves. But once again, that's not being, that's avoiding. It's avoiding the ease of being. So how many awarenesses have we gotten that say, hey, you're here, you're doing this, and we wouldn't necessarily receive them. But also, if you look at it, most of somebody saying anything like that was from a judgment and a point of view that they had. So you don't really want to listen to the GPS that comes from somebody's judgments. So let's do this. Everything that doesn't allow you guys watching and listening to know when what's being delivered is actually what is about you, because it'll create a sense of lightness and it'll create a sense of, oh, that makes sense. That allows things to fall into place more. And everything that doesn't allow you to recognize when it's bullshit and when it's coming from somebody else's judgment of you, and to recognize that there are some people out there that do a lot of judgment and there are some people out there that don't. Well, you destroy and uncreate all that, please.
Right and wrong, good and bad, POD and POC, all nine shorts, boys, perverts, and beyonds.
And so that being one, and then the other thing I wanted to say is, so when you look at being gone, or you look at, say, the last few days of whatever's been going on, well, one of the things we will tend to do is to, let's say, if you're in recovery, and we're using the word recovery because that's a word that's common, and those of you that are getting into semantics in the comments, you can let that go now. We're not doing it from a place of judgment. We're just using the word so that we can have a conversation here. Okay, so that's all. But what people will do is, if they're in recovery, quote unquote, they will go, oh, well, I'm checked out because I was an addict, or I'm checked out because I'm an addict, or I've got this going on because I'm an addict. No,
Yeah.
people who aren't addicted have a very similar thing going on lots of times.
Yep.
There's lots of people who are not very present because they're not, because of whatever. But there's also lots of people who, when they don't have feelings and thoughts and emotions running them, think they're checked out when they're actually getting more present. So the only thing we can really do is ask a question: am I more present or less? And what would I like to choose, and what can I choose that I haven't acknowledged?
Yeah. I love that. And you know, that thing of too, the kind of using the addiction as the entity that kind of created the destruction or the upset in, or you know, whatever it's created. That was the one thing I had to stop doing. That was the one of the big things I had to stop doing, because I remember even just being like, well, but you know, even with the they talk
Wow.
about they talk about alcoholism as the disease, right? So I have an allergy to alcohol. Give me one sip of alcohol, gone. That's it. That, you know, they talk about one drink is too many and 100's not enough.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of what's going on here. But still, with that, I see where I tried to do it, but I see where kind of with the stigma of addiction and with alcoholism, where it's like, well, it's a disease, therefore you have no choice with it. One of the things that I got awareness of that helped me, that I don't know how this will go over, but I'm going to kind of say it anyway, is I had to recognize that even that I chose. Even the disease of alcoholism, I chose. Even the disease, even the allergy to alcohol was a choice. With that, every time I acknowledge choices like that, I got so much freedom.
Yeah.
You know, I fucked my life up, not alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Alcohol just made me not remember so much of it, you know.
Exactly. What did I do yesterday? According to everybody else, you fucked up your life. Oh, well, I'm glad I don't remember that. Thank God for alcohol.
Yep.
Oh, that's
No, it's
so
always
good.
good to have a reason and justification.
Yeah. Well, look at this for a moment. The space you're stepping into, and it is a process for all of us, but the space you're stepping into, but also what you're acknowledging. Look at the power and the difference in that point of view of, I did it.
Mm,
I fucked up my life. On some level, I chose even the allergy to alcohol. I'm the one that created this, because that is the most empowering point of view you can have anywhere in your life. And and once again, with almost everything that we're saying, somebody could take it into another area where they're like, well, you're saying I'm wrong. No, no, no. These are
mm-mm.
no, not what I'm saying.
I think both of us have nowhere to judge anything.
So fucking true. I mean, just
But
anything.
sorry, you were on something there. Go on that.
No, just that. That is such an empowering space of, if things are fucking up in my life, on some level, I'm choosing it.
Yeah,
And if things are great in my life, on some level, I'm choosing it. It's
yeah,
like, and it is just choice. It's not even, and this is the part that really spins people out, is it's not wrong. It's not right. It is what you're choosing. And you go, wait, but how do I know what to choose if I don't have right and wrong? Exactly. From some space that's totally different, called being, where every choice is possible.
yeah. That's where that's where it begins. You know, and talking about choice, we call this, when do you have the freedom to be? And I think it's that is when you know you have choice, when you know that you've chosen everything,
Yeah.
or to some degree had a choice in it. Um, the Like you said, the power in that is Yeah.
Yeah. And it's exactly that. Yeah. It's indescribable,
Yeah.
as is so much of what we're speaking about. And one of the things that I'm very grateful for uh, about this with us right now is with you accessing everything that you are. And I said this before in a slightly different way. I just want to acknowledge it again. You're um, as the as you show up as the addict is no longer running the show. There's this ability to engage with you and your world, and the beauty of that, and the wisdom of that, and the energetics of that, in a way that lets people's world transform simply by listening, by being here, and wow.
Um, what was that? I read a quote yesterday. It was I think it was from Gary, your being is the greatest advertisement or something. It was
Oh yeah. Yeah.
like something along those lines. And I was
Yeah.
like, because you try and come up with the perfect video or like, I'm going to promote myself but it's like, it includes that, but it's not that. And the, one of the things I've always admired about you, um, was your willingness to show up with like just you would straight out say what was going on in your world that you'd just gotten through, or like it wasn't. I had so many secrets.
Mm.
One of the things that was killing me was the secrets I had and the secrets I was keeping. And it's like, and this, I always admired that in you. And it's interesting with this conversation with you now, I'm looking at that going, oh, I can finally actually, you've talked about forever that if you admire something in somebody else,
Mm.
that's because you are it too. Um, but I can actually, like, that was one of the things where
Oh
it's not, you wouldn't receive it, you couldn't.
yeah.
But I would like to say to people, what, like that part, what if that's not wrong? And that thing that we were talking about with the acknowledgement of where you're at now, I know I avoided that my whole life. Like I don't want to look at where I'm at now. I want to look at where I should be. Or
Yeah.
what I want to look at where's like just all of that. Like I want to look at this utopian future. I want to look at being somewhere where other people can receive me as something. I don't want to look at where I am now. Um, what if you could? Like
With ease.
with ease. Like, what if it was okay to just be with you?
Yeah, with ease and a level of kindness.
Yeah.
It's like I look outside at these birds. I have
I
been
can't
just
wait to
catching
see your
them.
birds.
I've just been catching them out of the corner of my eye because I wanted to be, here for this. Most people, when they turn their head, their attention goes. So I don't want you to think that's happening. But in that, it's like they know who they are. They're not trying to hide. They're not trying to pretend. These are little birds. They're not trying to pretend they're a peacock because that somehow is more valuable. They're not sitting there thinking, geez, in the future, I hope I can be a peacock, or maybe I can try to pretend to be a peacock so somebody won't see the tiny little brown bird that I am, and that willingness to, if we can do it. The thing that you were talking about is wanting to see the utopian ideal of what you could be and what you could choose if you just did everything perfectly. And it was in a perfect world where all the perfect situations occurred and you didn't ever have to expose any of your secrets, even to yourself. And you could just show up perfectly because that's the way it should be. So let me just not be present and everything perfect will, which is where so many people live their lives. Like my family used to do, well, when our ship comes in, we'll buy that. And I'm like, you're never going to buy that because you're never going to have the money because you're relying on some miracle to occur that doesn't involve your choice. And it's a similar thing that people do with their being, but it's like you said, and this is, this is a question I will also put forth with, which you also put forth. What would it be like? What would it take to just go, okay, here I am right now. And then also look at where you want to go into a knee-jerk judgment of you. Because we think we're only, and you and I had this conversation rather dynamically at one point. You were facilitating COPs, and there was a conversation had prior to this one conversation, which was, you need to expose what's true for you to people. And we were having this conversation. You're like, I'm telling them everything I've ever done wrong. And I'm like, did you realize that exposing what's really true is actually exposing your greatness also? And that's the thing that we haven't lived in a world where that's been nurtured. And so rather than going for the knee-jerk judgment of us and the knee-jerk, oh, I'm only being honest with myself if I look at what I'm doing wrong. What about I'm being honest with myself if I look at where I'm great? I'm being honest with myself if I look at where I don't think I can be great. I'm being honest with myself if I look at where I don't really want to be present and I just want it to change by some miracle that doesn't involve me. I'm being, and if we could be with us like we would be if we saw a little kid, or like a little kid that we know right now that is just an awesome creature that is maybe struggling and doesn't know it, how would we be with them? Like a niece, a nephew, one of these little kids that we get to see sometimes in access classes, for example. How would we be with them if they were struggling with the very thing we're struggling with right now? And be it. Like, let's pull a bubble of us from us, wherever, however you figure that out in your head. I'm not going to walk you through that, but and be us with us, and be that with us, and then see what shows up. And that is the space where it's okay. I'm okay. I'm not perfect. You know what? And for the first time in my life, that's fucking beautiful. I am not perfect. Oh my God.
Oh man, that is it. It is freeing.
Yeah.
There's some freedom in that. There is some freedom in that. Hey, I want to ask you about something that keeps popping into my world, because there's this. I wonder if you can help me with this. There's this energy. I think it's when I'm basically talking about all of this in different things, where in this, I think it's an awareness of what's in people's. Well, I don't even know. Let me just get it out. Where it's like, but how did you use access tools for 13 years and then fail like that? Like, so it's the, I feel like I'm trying to, I don't even know how to put it into a question.
Can I put some words to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
So there's an assumption that you failed.
Yeah.
That's a presumptive reality. It's also a judgment. So did you actually fail? Or did you just have a completely different path to walk than anybody else?
Yeah. That's what I actually know as true. I think there's somewhere I'm trying to do something weird, or I'm just aware of other people's worlds where it's been this thing of, yeah, but how could you have been? So I just needed to bring that up for some weird reason. But I agree.
Glad you are.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're bringing it up, because anybody who's going to go there, don't worry about any point of view they ever have.
Okay.
Don't worry about any point of view they ever have, because all they're looking to do is to invalidate the beauty and the miracle that is right in front of them.
Yeah. Which is so what access is. It's one of the things I had to look at in my world too was, in some strange way, I had to choose it like that for me.
Exactly.
Which figure that shit out. But I know I did. Like, I actually know I needed to choose it that way to get to something, to get to it the way I had to get to it, or the way I could get to it. It just the which has been another helpful thing in my, you know, my recovery, is none of it makes sense. Like, just surrendering to that. None of it fucking makes sense at all. Like, just the more
Yep.
you try and figure that out, why you have chosen a life of addiction, or why you have chosen any of that, you will drive yourself in circles. Give
Yep.
up the why is, man, that part has been really helpful as well.
Well, and that, yeah, for addiction and any of the other choices anybody makes,
Yeah.
you know. But
Yeah.
so to that question again of well, to the acknowledgement of your awareness, I had to do it exactly like this.
Yeah.
Which is so fucking true. And like you said, why? Because oh my god, the birds, they're it's so amazing. There's 3, 4, 5. They're like and the funny part is the feeder is now empty. They've eaten so much. So I gotta go feed them again. I'll do that after our live. Okay. But and to focus on somebody who goes, well, how could you have all these tools and fail? Dude, let me put it this way. No one fails until they fucking quit. Okay.
That, yeah.
So they truly give up. There's no such thing as failure. And if you look at this for a moment, like, what about the beauty of you going through all of this and us being there in the way that we were, and you being there in the way that you were? What about the fact that even though there was this thing that looked like Grand Canyons of separation, we've traveled down and it's come back together and it's more beautiful than it ever was before? What about that? And what about that awareness that if we just keep going, that is what we will always create? And what about the fact that you're walking, talking, living proof of the possibility of going beyond the fucking impossible? Dude. And what about, now here's another interesting part, right? Here's another interesting part is, if you look at what you wanted to prove that you were when you were being the addict, it was an awareness of what you actually are that couldn't be accessed because the addict had taken front and center. But with your willingness to go, okay, and I know I've got a sense of energetically you making that choice along this road, right? Where you went, okay, I'm going to do things different now. And that was you going, okay, addict, here, you're not front and center anymore. I don't know what the fuck it's going to take, and I am scared to fucking death, but I am going to start being on the stage of my life. And you're going to have to figure something else out because you're not running the show anymore. And what a friggin' gift to everybody in the world, whether they're willing to hear it right now or not. And it's not just addicts, and I know you know this. It's all of us, man, because we're all addicted to this fucking reality. We're all addicted to pretending we're normal. We're all addicted to believing normal is better than as different as we are. We're all addicted to valuing people's judgments and valuing our own judgments. We're all addicted to positive, negative, good, bad, right, and wrong, as though that will somehow get us somewhere that will be far greater and perfect one day. We're all addicted to that shit. Nobody on this fucking planet that's not addicted other than Gary.
Fucker.
Oh, I know. Fucker and thank you, fucker. It's more like thank you, fucker.
Oh man, totally. Like, Jesus. Oh, you know, actually, there's one moment that I remember as being this weird energetic turning point. I was having a conversation with you about something which is not relevant, but you said to me, "Hey, dude, if anyone can do it, you can." And it was just this almost like, I don't know, call it like that, like a come on, like we call it any, like just a a little bit of a push along, but I remember in that moment going, okay, fuck it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for receiving the acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing when whatever it is, whether we call it our addiction, to a substance or to all of these things we just talked about, it's like when an acknowledgement gets delivered, that thing will make us shunt it because we've given more value to that being an indicator of reality than we have our own awareness. So we're in a dynamic state of not trusting ourselves. And yet sometimes it sneaks in, and just one momentary awareness can set your world on a totally different path, because and that is the awareness of what actually is, what is actually true. And in those moments, and they sneak up on us most of the time. It's tough to do it. We don't really do it cognitively. We do it as we do it, but that's the space of being also. And that's what our being, and this is the thing about the addiction to substances, the addiction to this reality, all of the addictions of this reality. So number one, even as I'm saying that, every time I say the word addiction, there's this addiction to judging the word addiction. So everything that is, destroy and create all that shit.
Times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, online, shorts, boys, perverts, and beyonds. Yeah, it has the whole stigma of its own.
Yeah, it's got this whole stigma of its own, and it is always, it's circular and into greater contraction. And when we allow just it's an energetic thing more than words, but when we do allow the space, the I don't even know how to put it. It's
well, I think you said it with when we do allow, like have allowance. I mean, even having allowance for addiction and you can say love you, and every person has a different, thing with what love is. Everyone does the same thing with addiction, and how it's one of those words. It's like love, addiction, marriage, like money. I remember having that with alcoholic, like the word alcoholic. And after a few months in AA and being like called upon every single fucking meeting I was in, hi, my name's Brendon and I'm an alcoholic. Within about 3 months, I was over anything I had on that word. I was like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah. Wow. It's also interesting how certain words like that, it's an interesting thing how they will, depending on the person and the situation, perpetuate certain energies.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to the point of, it's like I can say, hi, my name is Dain, I'm a seedless watermelon, and I don't identify with it. It's like, but it's an interesting thing. And part of what you were talking about, sorry, I did not realize there were so many types of hummingbirds. It is amazing. Just in my own backyard, there's like 6 different kinds that I've seen so far. They're just, wow.
I love that.
It's so cool. So that thing of the identification leading to, if we don't have to buy it anymore, then we don't have to define our future based on this solid reality that we're creating around this thing, I guess is what I'm saying. But I feel like I'm just babbling about that right now. So blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, 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 blah.
I think we may have fried people beyond recognition. Oh, I remember what I wanted to say. And I want to acknowledge this because of, oh my God, more hummingbirds. This is so cool. Okay. I
You're gonna have to show us those things once.
I know I will set up my camera so that it can show those things. And I know if you don't, would people be excited about birds before and I'd be like, okay, okay, hawks, eagles, yes, hummingbirds, okay, yes. But there's just something about them at this point in my life. Anyway, willing to receive something different, right?
Hey, if no one else is excited, you are. Whatever.
Exactly.
Whatever.
True story. Hi, my name's Dain. I'm a seedless watermelon and I identify as a hummingbird. Thank you very much. Instead of squirrel brain, it's hummingbird brain. Totally. What I was going to say and what I wanted to bring up about and I'm not sure why I'm even bringing this up, but when you were talking about being interviewed, and sometimes the interviews are just like, and sometimes it's about that thing that I was talking about because one of the things that I used to get interviewed for a lot, and I started hating it, so I stopped doing it, and now I'm willing to do it again, was Suicide Awareness Month and Day, suicide prevention. What is it? International Suicide Prevention Awareness Day and Month, right? And because there were so many people that wanted to dive into the significance of my story and my story and my story, and I'm like, the whole reason I'm here is to let you know I had this story, I changed it, you can too. But they weren't interested. They were interested in the drama of the addiction.
Okay. Thanks for saying that, because that's been the frustrating part in my world. I just realized that was
Well, that creates a place where you don't necessarily want to go on an interview because you're not sure if it's going to be one of these or one of those.
Yeah.
But what I found is if you ask, and I'm not exactly sure what the question is, but sort of like get the sense of, will the person in the interview create this? Like, it's kind of like with sex with somebody. Will it be easy? Will it be fun? Will I learn something? Will I be happier afterwards? And will they be grateful? Sort of like, at least the last couple, will I be happier and will they be grateful? Like, will it do this or will it do this? And if you ask, you'll have a sense, because it's based on not only the outlet, but it's based on the interviewer, and it's based on their fixed points of view. And it's also, here's the interesting part that really just, for me, is it's based on what that person is willing or not willing to receive so many times. If they're willing to receive a miracle, if they're willing to receive the possibility and the space for that to exist, it becomes this amazing gift.
Well, you know what I just realized too with you saying that was I haven't even been somewhere. I've been using it as a source to get this to the world, but not even in question with, okay, will this one actually be a contribution? I'm just like, I'll do them all.
Yeah.
But that's still got this weird energy to it of like, I am not the valuable product, they are. So I'm grateful for that, because I'm like, okay, I'm actually going to ask each one whether it will be a contribution.
Cool.
So there.
Awesome. Yes. And that's the thing of, it's interesting because that's also where they are the valuable product, but also like doing the job is, I'm going to do my interview so I can change the world, which
true story.
Which that's also not the valuable product. Actually, your journey and the energy and the awareness that you bring, your story of that as an opening to possibilities, those are the valuable products.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you, man. I'm so grateful.
You too, my brother.
I want to mention a couple of things, because there's been a few resources. One is you've got the Waking Up Miraculously audio, which I love.
Still free.
As a daily thing. Still
free. Yeah.
Oh, boom. There you go. So the Waking Up Miraculously. Another one that's been really helpful for me is the, I forget what it's called now, but it's the Unhiding, the one that you did, the Unhiding You, the Going Beyond. I can't even remember what it's called now, but someone will. I'm sure someone will put it in the comments. Those two were so helpful. And also I've got the free video series that I just did called Rising from the Ashes. It's got epic access consciousness tools and all of this stuff that we've been talking about. So there you go. How does it get any better than that?
That's right. And thank you. This has been
Thank you.
Phenomenal and beautiful. And wow.
Yeah, truly. I'm so grateful. You know, it was interesting before because I was like, I whatever that was, thank you. So
me too, my friend. What else is possible now? And
true story.
thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for playing
Thank you
with
guys.
us.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank
Mwah.
you. Mwah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.